Hey everyone, so a viewer wanted me to give my thoughts on a video by someone by the name of Jaded Culture titled Free Speech versus Educated Democratic Speech. So let's get started.
Free speech is commonly understood as the right to express any opinion without restraint or censorship.
Correct. You're off to a very good start. Free speech isn't just commonly held to mean that, though. It actually does mean that. The same thing that allows you to create your video, seemingly pitting free speech against educated democratic speech, is the same thing that allows me to create my video, speaking my mind and rebutting you. Everyone gets a little piece of the free speech pie. You can disagree with me, I can disagree with you, people can disagree with either of us or agree with either of us, without being jailed and without being censored. Continue. I'm actually very happy that you defined it correctly. We may actually have some common ground.
This is true. However, the right to free speech in democratic societies such as Canada and America is predicated on many other tenets that are thought to constitute a democratic society.
Well, the right to freedom of speech is necessary for a proper democratic society. If you don't have free speech, then you don't have a democratic society. I think I can already tell what your problem is. When someone has the right to something, at least in the United States, that means that they are free to do or not do that thing. For example, if someone wants to self-censor, they can do that. If someone wants to forego their right to own a firearm, then they don't have to own one. If someone would like to testify against themselves, they can do so if they want. But the thing with rights is that we have the opportunity to affirm those rights as well. The rights exist separate from the Constitution in the US, and the Constitution prevents the government from infringing on them. Without freedom of speech, it is impossible to have a democratic society that actually takes in the opinion of the people, because that opinion is regulated to an extent that people aren't able to voice that opinion. We'll get to the criteria that you think exist a little bit later.
A democratic society is one in which the majority of the citizens of said society have a say in how that society is organized and ran.
I believe that would be organized and run, but that could have just been a fudge line or whatever. I won't make a big deal over it. But yes, and in the United States, the majority actually put restrictions on itself in regards to the infringing of certain rights. Take the concept of government-mandated voting. I don't think that's a particularly good idea simply because it is the government interfering with a right. And they're interfering with it by forcing people to vote. What if you downright hate both of the candidates' ideas equally? Your ability to abstain from voting is just as important as your ability to vote. What if you don't feel you are educated enough to make a decision and decide on your own not to participate in the process in this particular cycle? That's the whole point. Deciding on your own.
Now, people often throw free speech around in North American society as if it was an automatic right.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's kind of what it says right here.
That should never be challenged or conceptually thought about.
Oh no. Any advocate for the freedom of speech would not tell you that it shouldn't ever be challenged or conceptually thought about, but what they will remind you of is the very inconvenient point that it is the right to freedom of speech that allows you to criticize it. You can criticize freedom of speech to your heart's content, but I will absolutely disagree with you until I'm no longer alive.
In actuality, however, free speech is not the right to say whatever you want because you feel like saying it.
Penguins playing drum solos on the subway. Hitting someone with a golf club in the crotch while singing Hey Macarena. Dirty sloths are ruining my souffle. Titties, titties. Niner 5-0 cheese whiz. Should I be arrested now?
The point of free speech is actually to give every member of a society the right to their voice.
How is that any different from the right to say whatever you want because you feel like saying it? Unless you think some people should have their voice controlled.
With the intended purpose of making that society a better place, a more egalitarian place.
I'm sorry, but the only place that's egalitarian is America. Okay. There's the problem already. You're assigning purposes to rights. Now, while certain rights definitely have certain reasons to justify them, you're confusing the purpose for said right with how everyone should be using said right. When people generally express their opinion, they aren't faking, unless they're trolling or playing devil's advocate, and they think that if people agree with them, they will make the country they live in a better place. Do you think there should be some kind of committee that decides what opinions make the world a better place or not? Do you think there should be some type of organization that separates ignorant speech from educated speech? The problem with that is that not everyone agrees on what is ignorant and what isn't. I think that your opinion on free speech is ignorant and naive. And you probably think my opinion on free speech is ignorant and naive. Now, my position is that we both should be able to voice these things without punishment. Your position seems to be that my opinion is not educated, and therefore, I don't have the right to say the things I'm saying. I'm sure that, conveniently, all of your opinions are educated. Am I right?
One that doesn't just benefit the few, but benefits the majority.
Unless that majority is uneducated, then fuck them.
Ignoring in this video the ridiculous hypocrisy of having a democratic capitalist society.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that hypocrisy to me. I really don't get it.
One should note that the major point of a democracy is equality.
Yeah, but, I mean, as I've seen in recent times, some people define equality a little bit different than I do.
Similarly, we get...
I'm sorry. I know this is mean, but you did it with the egalitarian thing, and and it sounds like you're just reading off of some crappy textbook and can't quite pronounce the words. It's like watching a young female version of George W. Bush.
Similarly, we get many other benefits in a democratic society, such as free healthcare or free education. And in Canada in particular, these things are heavily subsidized by the government.
Oh my god, you did it again! It's subsidized.
Subsidized by the government. Subsidized by the government. Now this isn't accidental. We get the right to education and to a represented society or government because these two things are interconnected.
No, they're not. And here's why. Your right to freedom of speech is completely separate from any right to an education in the United States. You aren't prevented from speaking your mind until you complete a certain amount of education. Free speech is not conditional on education. But maybe our Supreme Court just missed what the true and educated interpretation of the right is. You'd better give them a call.
Let me step back. The point of free speech is to give every member in a society the right to their voice.
Unless that voice is uneducated, according to your pompous ass, that's something we'll be coming back to routinely.
In order to make that society a place where all voices are heard, and therefore, that society would then be a place that would benefit the majority.
I'm going to hone in on one word in your statement. The word all. Please recognize that that word all is there in your statement.
So a part of free speech is citizenship. You are a citizen of a society, and you should, as a citizen, have a right to be involved in how that society is shaped. An important part of being a citizen is being involved.
That is an important part of being a citizen. However, it is not a necessary condition in being a citizen. I can be a citizen and never participate in my community or political process if I wanted. Regardless of how involved you are still protected under the First Amendment.
Being a citizen is about voting.
Being a citizen gives you the right to vote in the society, and that could be a reason someone wants to become a citizen, but it isn't what it's about. It also protects you under the law of our country if you become a citizen. And guess which amendment grants you the protection to speak your mind regardless of whether you decide to vote or not? It's the first one.
It's about social activism.
Good luck socially activating without free speech, idiot.
Or community service.
No.
It's about being engaged with your society in order to, again, make it a better place.
That's just your opinion. Unless you want that written into law somewhere. The only way someone gets freedom of speech is to participate in social activism, but in order to participate in social activism, you need the freedom to speak your mind. But you can't get the freedom to speak your mind until you participate in social activism. But you can't participate in social activism. You see where I'm going with this?
So one of the reasons we have the right to education is in order to educate ourselves about the society we live in. So we know what we're talking about and are aware of all relevant information when voting or being involved in society or making political and social decisions. Universities were actually created with the philosophy of trying to make more engaged and intelligent citizens.
Well, they're certainly engaged, intelligent, but they still should be able to have the right to voice their opinion.
The reason we want to make more intelligent citizens is...
She said citizens.
Is because, you guessed it, we want them to be involved. Once they're involved, they can voice their opinions and their thoughts, using free speech, in order to make society a better place for everyone.
I want to steal every single old lady's walker so they have difficulty standing up, merely for the objective of making the world a worse place for everyone. If you're correct, someone would be able to charge me with something. Go ahead. Bring a case forward.
A society that benefits the majority. What free speech actually is in a democratic society is not the right to say whatever you want because you feel like saying it.
Ballsack. Electric toilets keep morphing into live plants that keep dying on me. Intrinsic properties of cows allow them to deliver messages from Martians. Pages and pages of the Magna Carta keep giving me paper cuts on my eyelids. Oh no, a repeat offense!
Free speech is the right to educated speech. If you utilize your right to freedom of speech, but then are socially and politically apathetic, if you don't vote, if you don't educate yourself on social issues, if you're not involved in the community, if you're not involved in being a citizen, an educated citizen, you have no right to free speech.
I have nothing but a high school diploma to my name. Go fuck yourself, I disagree.
Hey! I hear somebody getting going on in there. Is somebody in there?
Not within a democratic society, anyways. Because the point of free speech is not to validate your ego and to provide you with a platform for your ignorant and idiotic opinions.
Please carefully review what you're doing right now, Jaded Culture. Free speech is currently giving you a platform to validate your ego and spout your ignorant and idiotic opinions. Yay, free speech! You're probably thinking, wait, no, my opinions aren't idiotic and ignorant. Well, that's the same defense I'm using. Who decides the case?
The point of free speech is equality.
Then anyone should have the equal right to voice their opinions.
The point of free speech is to create a democratic state.
Okay, so free speech is required before you have a democratic state. Didn't you just say earlier that social activism is what gives you your right to free speech under a democratic state? You've built a chicken and egg scenario for yourself, Jaded. Which came first, the activism or the speech? I'll give everyone a hint. It's the free speech.
The point of free speech is not and should not be to oppress the voices and experiences of marginalized groups.
It's gonna be okay. She doesn't realize that freedom of speech is what gives those marginalized groups their voice and all that stuff. But, she'll learn. It's okay. It's gonna be alright. It's fine.
If you think you have the automatic right to talk out against things like racial, gender, LGBT, age, immigrant, and so on inequality, and say these things don't exist...
Well, you refuse to provide any substantial evidence to prove some of those things exist, and it is predicated on the basis of simple prejudice, so you're damn straight. Sorry, microaggression. You're damn right. No, that could be considered conservative. You're damn right as opposed to you're damn left. You're damn correct. I have the right to say I don't believe that those fucking things exist. You're not going to shoehorn free speech into, you only have the right to free speech if you say what I want. No, fuck you.
Despite the overwhelming amount of evidence that proves you wrong.
Okay.
Then you're talking out of privilege.
Oh, there it is. We're all talking out of privilege. You have the right to say whatever you want, and you take it for granted. You spit on it, and you claim it doesn't exist. And the only reason you can do that is because you are currently living in that freedom. And I don't think you'll ever understand that.
Just because racism and sexism, for example, don't affect you, it doesn't mean these things don't exist.
Hardly anyone claims that they don't exist. And yeah, they do affect me. People can be racist towards white people and sexist towards men, believe it or not. And you're implying that doesn't exist. What's very telling, though, is that it's clear you think everyone who has the opinion that I do is straight, white, and male. You are demonstrably incorrect, and in fact, that is a racist and sexist assumption to make. Good work. I'm doing well.
And just because you watched a bunch of anti-feminist videos on YouTube and read a bunch of things that were posted in the Coontown subreddit, it doesn't mean you're educated on these topics.
Never been to the Coontown subreddit. And I make those anti-feminist videos, miss. I am an incredibly informative person. But that doesn't fall under your definition of education, I'm guessing. Can I say, just because you read some feminist books and went on the Rad Fem Hub website doesn't mean you're educated on these topics? Will that apply? If not, why not? I'm sure it's because your definition of education is agreeing with you. This is a bunch of totalitarian chicanery.
When people promote privilege and ignorance under the guise of free speech, they hurt society.
Then stop talking.
They undermine democracy and violate the tenets that constitute a fair and just society. This is actually when censorship can become a socially powerful tool.
I agree. Let's start with you, since I think you're harming society. Sorry, I just harmed society with that sentence. Time to be a good little citizen.
Social minorities, racial, gender, or otherwise, spend years educating themselves on society, both informally and formally.
Watching YouTube videos is informally educating yourself.
And we use logic and evidence to back up our arguments. Often rigorously. But because we're minorities, we are talked over. Our opinions are devalued. Our education is questioned. We are ignored. Our voices and experiences are ignored because our experiences are not the experiences of the privileged, of the powerful. The privileged censor the marginalized every single day. They censor our voices and they censor our experiences. Every fucking day. They deny us our voices through everyday social interactions, and they deny us through political and legal structures and everything in between. So when you comment on my YouTube videos or on my Twitter accounts and you call me a dumb bitch, make comments about my makeup or my body, you deny me my voice. You act like the fact that because you're cis or white or middle class or male or whatever, it makes your opinion more valuable than mine. Even though my opinions are backed up by years of education, logic, support, and a ridiculous amount of evidence that you refuse to recognize. If you do that, if you deny me my voice, then I'm going to deny you your voice and delete your comment. I'm going to block you. Because that's exactly what you do to me every single time you treat me than less than person. Act like my opinion is invaluable just because I am a young woman who doesn't support your shelter's perspective of the world. The point of free speech is not to oppress the voices and experiences of marginalized groups. The point of free speech is equality. So either educate yourself or shut the hell up.